What's up, guys? Just Josh, and you're bringing you guys a video that I have been putting on for quite some time now. I'm really sorry about that, but the updated Whitechapel album ranking is finally here. I meant to get this out on October 29th, Kin release day, but that unfortunately did not happen. But here it is now, yeah. But yeah, I will be including Kin in this album ranking. And yeah, that's about it. I uploaded the original Whitechapel album ranking about a year ago now, I'm pretty sure. Let me check here for you guys. Yeah, about a year ago, March 28th of 2020. And yeah, now that Kin has been released, October 29th, I figured it's time to update this list finally, so let's get right into it. And unfortunately, at number 8, we have Kin, Whitechapel's most recent album, their 8th album, released October 29th of 2021. No, this is not clickbait. This is real. Before I even get into discussing the album, and before you guys go down to the comment section and absolutely destroy me, I wanted to like this album. I was excited for this album, dude. Lost Boy came out, I shit my pants. I was like, damn, this song's fucking heavy. This song is techy. There's that little clean bridge that sounds like Tool, kinda. This song is really cool. And then they dropped the absolute powerhouse, the absolute slammer of Bloodsoaked Symphony, and I was all in. I was like, this song is the filthiest fucking shit they've released in some time. I'm gonna love this album. And then they came out with Orphan, which is more of like a radio type ballad. I even like that song. I was like, okay, man, Phil's showing off the pipes more and more. He's really progressed. Each album, he just gets better and better at clean singing. Let's see what this album's got. And then the album comes out October 28th. I download a VPN. I download a VPN and connect to an Australian time zone to make it look like I'm in Australia, so I can listen to the album on YouTube, because Australia is 14 hours ahead of New York where I live, so I could listen to the album early. My first listen through, I didn't hate it. I was like, okay, this album is pretty different. This is definitely going to take more and more listens to digest. But it got to the final song, Kin, the title track, and I was like, what? I had to check my phone to see if I was listening to Whitechapel. It was really, really bizarre. But I did like the album on the first listen, and then I listened to it again, and again, and again, and again. And my excitement, my enjoyment of the album deteriorated with each listen. This album got worse and worse the more I listened to it. And yeah, my fears have come true. Whitechapel have released the first album that I genuinely do not like and cannot get into. And I really didn't want to say it. I know a lot of people love this album, and good on you. Good on you for enjoying this album, because I can't. I really can't. There's only 4 or 5 songs on here that I genuinely like, and those are Lost Boy, A Bloodsoaked Symphony, the ones that made us To the Wolves is a rager, and then Orphan. I like Orphan. But honestly, and I Will Find You's okay, but I'm not really crazy about it. Man, fucking Anti-Cure. Oh my god, dude. History is silent. Oh my god. Without Us and the title track Kin. The title track Kin is painful. Now, I get that this is a very personal album for Phil about his parents and the shit he went through as a teenager, battling depression, battling just an evil side of himself, telling him to do crazy shit, or telling him crazy shit. It's a very powerful concept, and I'm definitely not taking anything away from that, but the music here is not what I want to hear from Whitechapel. And I'm not saying they should remake the Somatic Defilement over and over again. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to get at is that this album just to me sounds like a confused mess between heavy Whitechapel and soft Whitechapel. I don't think these two styles work together in the way that they are presented on this album. Now you might be saying, oh Josh, the Valley had some soft shit on it, and that worked. That worked in my opinion. When a Demon Defiles a Witch worked. Hickory Creek worked. Third Depth worked. It added to the songs. The soft parts made sense within the context of the songs, and they added to the songs. Here it just, for me, seems like soft for the sake of soft. It doesn't gel well, in my opinion, on this album. Most of these songs just sound like a confused fucking mess, like I said, between heavy Whitechapel and soft Whitechapel. At this point, I think they should just pick a lane. Do they want to be heavy or do they want to be soft? Because the songs on here that are just heavy, a Bloodsoaked Symphony, the ones that made us to the Wolves, are crushing. Those songs are really good. And Orphan is just soft, and it's a great song. Kin is just soft. I could give a shit less about that song. The rest of the song, well, I Will Find You is kind of heavy too. And Lost Boy is pretty heavy as well. But yeah, Anti-Cure, History is Silent, Without Us, Kin. I don't know what the fuck these songs are, but they are not good songs in my opinion. I can't get into them at all. Like, History is Silent, you have that really heavy chorus, and then it stops, and then Phil says, misery, and then it goes into the clean verse. It's just very jarring, the switches between heavy and soft, and then soft and heavy. I don't think it works at all. Anyways, I'm not going to repeat myself anymore. Number 8. This pains me, okay? I do not want to shit on Whitechapel. I love Whitechapel. They are my favorite deathcore band. But I do not like this album, and I am not going to pretend to like this album just to get more positive comments or likes. Dislikes don't even fucking matter because YouTube removed them. That's another video coming up, my rant on that. Anyways, I don't want to talk about this album anymore. Number 8, my least favorite Whitechapel album. I am sorry, Kin is not a good album in my opinion. And now that I got that off my chest, number 7, Whitechapel, SelfThought album, released in 2012, their 4th album, and this album saw a major shift for the band. Maybe not major, but a pretty big shift for the band. Their first 3 albums are quite similar in style, but they are a bit different from album to album. Somatic was just straight up deathcore brutality, no holds barred, just no space to breathe, just pummeling you with dizzying tech death riffs, blast beats, spine-splitting breakdowns. That album is just pure carnage. And then Exile, it built upon the carnage. It still had heavy-ass breakdowns. It still had those dizzying tech death riffs, but they experimented a bit more, creating more structured songs. Because as good as the Somatic Defilement is, some of the songs are not conventionally structured, and I'm not saying every song needs to be verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, obviously. I'm just saying Exile had more of a focus to it. It had more structured songs, and then New Era built upon that idea. And yeah, now we have this album, and then we have this album rather, and yeah, let's focus on like speed on this album. It's more mid-paced. It's got some groove metal elements, some nu metal elements, even some gent elements, and it makes for quite an interesting Whitechapel album. It's my second least favorite because I don't think it's a very strong album compared to every other Whitechapel album. But my favorite tracks on here are Make It Bleed, Hate Creation, Culturalist, Section 8, Faces and Possibilities of an Impossible Existence. I know Why Dementia is one of their biggest songs. I can never get into it. I think it's really boring. Dead Silence is decent, but it's filler. Same with Night Remains, and then Devoid is like a pointless interlude. So yeah, pretty decent album in my opinion, but definitely my second least favorite. And at number 6, we have Mark of the Blade, Whitechapel's 6th album, released in 2016. And this album is quite similar to the self-titled album in the fact that it's much more mid-paced, and it's got a lot of nu metal and groove metal elements and some genty elements as well. And yeah, this album is kind of some people's least favorite. Some people don't really like this album. I think it's a pretty decent album. I do spin this one from time to time. My favorite tracks on here are The Void, Mark of the Blade, Bring Me Home, Tremors, A Killing Industry, Dwell in the Shadows, and Descending. So yeah, a couple filler tracks on here. Elitist Ones, I know it's a single, but I don't really like that song. I think it's quite childish, honestly. The lyrics are pretty dumb, honestly. I get what Phil is trying to say. He's trying to speak out against metal elitism, but in my opinion, the way it comes off is just like cringeworthy. Tormented is a decent song, kind of filler. Brotherhood is like an acoustic interlude. Venomous, again, decent song, but it's filler. Yeah, this album was notable though for featuring clean vocals for the first time from Phil Bozeman, and in the songs Bring Me Home and Decennium. And Bring Me Home is a great song, kind of like a power ballad almost about Phil's father passing away. And yeah, it's a very emotional song, very weighty song, and Phil sounds great on here. He kind of sounds like a mix between Corey Taylor and Maynard James Keenan from Tool. And yeah, his clean vocals are pretty good on here, but they would become much, much more advanced and furthered in terms of technique and overall ability, I guess, impressiveness on the Valley and Kin. Even though I don't like Kin, I cannot argue that, or I cannot dispute rather, that Phil's cleans on that album are amazing. His singing has come a long way. Even if I don't like that album, I can still say Phil stole the show on that album in terms of performance. His cleans are amazing on that album. But yeah, and Decennium, I also love his clean vocals on Decennium. There's a lot less of them on Decennium, but that's just a great song, a very inspirational and motivating song. And yeah, this album, while it's not as strong as their other albums, I would say this is a pretty decent album. And at number 5, we have Whitechapel's 5th album, released in 2014, Our Endless War. And just like the last 2 albums, this album is a bit more mid-paced, but I would say that this album does have more fast-paced songs on it, like the title track, Our Endless War, is pretty thrashy in parts. Mono is just a rager. Worship the Digital Age is another rager, and the bonus track, A Process So Familiar, is another rager. But yeah, my favorite tracks on here are the title track, The Saw is the Law, Mono, Worship the Digital Age, and Diggs Road. I mean, Psychopathy is pretty good, Blacked Out is pretty good, couldn't care less about how times have changed, that if you want a war, you'll get it. Chorus is just so generic. They can do so much better than that song. I would have much rather had one of the bonus tracks be in that song's place. I probably would have replaced it with Fall of the Hypocrites, honestly, because Worship the Digital Age is more of a faster song, and if I put A Process So Familiar after that song, I don't know. I guess you could have 2 fast songs in a row, it doesn't really matter. But for the longest time, I used to replace Worship the Digital Age and How Times Have Changed with the 2 bonus tracks, but then I realized how much of a rager Worship the Digital Age is, and now I listen to the album the way it was intended to be listened to. I usually skip How Times Have Changed, though. But yeah, Let Me Burn is a decent song. I know a lot of people love that song, but I'm not too crazy about it. But really, that's the only song on here that I'm like, meh. The rest of the album is honestly pretty good. This is a very pissed off album. Diggs Road especially is just a heartbreaking song about Phil's parents. And A Process So Familiar is just a dizzying, like, really fast song about anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that. Very relatable stuff. And yeah, this is a pretty good album. And at number 4, we have The Valley, Whitechapel's 7th album, released in 2019. This was number 1 on my original ranking. It fell down quite a few spots. If you guys don't know, these album ranking videos are based on two main things: A, my personal enjoyment of each album, and B, how much I listen to each album and enjoy it all the way through. So, that being said, I don't really find myself coming back to the Valley too much these days, but I still like it. It's still a really, really good album. My favorite tracks on here are When a Demon Defiles a Witch, Forgiveness is Weakness, Brimstone, Hickory Creek, Black Bear, Third Depth, Lovelace, Doomwoods, and the absolute unrelenting rager, the bonus track, Sea of Trees. It's a goddamn shame that that song is not on streaming services. It's vinyl exclusive. More people need to hear that song. Seriously, if you haven't heard Sea of Trees, check it out right now. That song fucks, okay? That song is just an unrelenting rager. The way it fits into the Valley's concept is very interesting as well. Doomwoods is just this really sludgy, very doomy just track about the lowest depression that Phil has ever faced after the death of both of his parents. And then at the end of the song, to close out the album, you're met with that somber yet kind of hopeful acoustic guitar passage outro, and then bam, you're just pummeled with this crazy, unrelenting, just fast as hell song about Phil wanting to hang himself. It's just unrelenting. Like I said, I've used that word a bunch of times now to describe this song, but it is unrelenting. Anyways, yeah, these later era Whitechapel albums are definitely a lot more mid-paced, definitely a lot more groove oriented, which is fine. I mean, I like the groove. There's still heavier moments on here. There's still faster moments, I should say, on here. Like When a Demon Defiles a Witch, We Are One is pretty fast as well, and like I said, Sea of Trees. But yeah, this album is just really good. Phil's cleans on here definitely improve from Mark of the Blade. When a Demon Defiles a Witch, that clean bridge is great. I love singing along to that. Hickory Creek is awesome as well. Third Depth is great too. This is just a very, very solid album. And at number 3, we have Whitechapel's second album, released in 2008. This is Exile. Now, I was talking about this when I was discussing the self-titled album, but this album built upon the carnage that was Whitechapel's debut album, The Somatic Defilement, and refined it. Gave it a more structured songs, more adventurous, I guess, riffing and songwriting. There's a lot of great riffs on here. The riffing across every Whitechapel album pretty much is always great. Phil's vocals on here are just the epitome of disgusting. His signature lows are on full display in this album, just nasty, gut-wrenching gutturals, and his raspy highs, which I think Phil's highs are underrated. He gets a lot of credit for his signature lows, and rightly so, but I think his high screams are pretty underrated, to be honest. He does high vocals pretty well. They're few and far between, but when he does do them, I think they fit really well and they sound really good, especially on this album. I love how just raspy and raw they are. But yeah, my favorite tracks on here are The Father of Lies, This is Exile, Possession, To All That Are Dead, Exalt, Somatically Incorrect, Daemon, The Procreated of Legions, or not of Legions, Eternal Refuge, there we go, and Messiahbolical. Yeah, of Legions is an interlude, Death Becomes Him is an interlude. They're decent, they do what they need to do for the flow of the album, but I don't think there's a bad song on this album. This song, just all across the board, it fucks, man, it fucks. Number 3, This is Exile. At number 2, we got Whitechapel's third album, A New Era of Corruption, released in 2010. Funny story about this album, I did not like this album at first. This was my least favorite Whitechapel album at first. But then one day I randomly decided I'll give this album another shot. And slowly but surely it became one of my favorite Whitechapel albums. I absolutely love this album. When I want to listen to some good old Whitechapel, this is one of my first choices. This album, top to back, back to front, bottom to top, top to bottom, whatever, just outright is just amazing. My favorite tracks on here are Devolver, Breeding Violence, Darkest Day of Man, Reprogrammed to Hate, End of Flesh, Unnerving is pretty good. A Future Corrupt is amazing. Pair of Mockery is pretty good. Murder Sermon is awesome. Necromechanical is awesome. That guttural Phil does right before the first verse is just nasty. Single File to Dehumanization is probably the only track on here I'm not too big on. It's okay, but meh. Kind of a weird closer. And then Animus, the bonus track, is really good as well. Lots of just great breakdowns on here. Some awesome riffs, especially in A Future Corrupt and End of Flesh. Just great riffs on here. And again, Phil's vocals, I cannot praise them enough. The lows, the highs, they are just amazing, man. And yeah, I'm glad I came to love this album, because this album really is awesome. And at number 1, we have Whitechapel's debut album, released in 2007, The Somatic Defilement. This album, like I said when I was talking about the SelfThought album, this album is just a 31-minute slab of just disgusting, brutal, dizzying, spine-splitting, earth-shattering fucking deathcore. This is my favorite deathcore album of all time, and honestly one of, if not the most brutal deathcore albums ever to be recorded. And brutal, of course, BR00T4L. That's how you spell brutal if you don't know. It'd be a really cool deathcore kid. Anyways, this album, man, I do like the original better. As you can see, I have the original cover on here. The remaster is okay. I mean, I listen to it whenever I'm out driving or at work doing carts and shit, because they don't have the original version on Spotify. I like the original version better because it just has this raw edge to it, this really nice bottom end to it, and the remaster makes it sound a bit flat. The guitars are a bit thinner. The bass is in the remaster though. For some reason the bass is like completely inaudible on the original version, but I really don't care. But the bass is there more prominently on the remaster, which is like the only thing I like about it. The remaster is weird because like in parts where the lows and highs are stacked on top of each other, the highs tend to get buried quite a lot. And even throughout the parts where it's just the highs, they tend to be a bit lower in the mix than on this original version of the album. But anyways, yeah, like I said earlier, most of the songs on here don't really follow a traditional song structure, and they don't really need to. It's just pure carnage, pure brutality, pure unpredictableness. Each song has like 2 or 3 breakdowns. It's just ridiculous. This album is ridiculously heavy, and yeah, this is my favorite Whitechapel album of all time. I love every track on here. The title track, Devirgination Studies, Prostatic Fluid Asphyxiation is possibly the heaviest song on the album. Fairy Fae, Ear to Ear, Alone in the Morgue, Festering Fiesta. Vice or Exciser I'm not too huge on. I know it's the big single from this album, but man, I'd take it or leave it. I do like this song still. I don't skip it, but it's just meh. And then Articulate Mortis, the closer, is just amazing. Anyways, yeah, that's my favorite Whitechapel album. And hopefully you guys liked this video. Hopefully you guys thought this was interesting. My updated Whitechapel album ranking. Hopefully you guys go somewhat easy on me in the comments for putting Kin last. I know that's going to piss off quite a few people, but hey, it's my opinion, man. I'm not going to lie and say I love Kin when I don't. Anyways, if you guys are Whitechapel fans as well, please leave your ranking of their albums down in the comment section below. And keep your eyes peeled, because up next I'm going to upload a video about my thoughts on Alex Rudinger stepping down from Whitechapel. That video will be in the description when it is made and uploaded. And if you guys are still watching, thank you guys so much, and peace out.